Buckfield, Sumner Solid Waste Committee meeting Woodard on September 23rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. and we have a forum this evening. Should we first just cover what we voted on last night, just to so everybody understands what we're up to?
If you just want to give them a synopsis of what's going on so that can lead into their public comment.
Yeah.
I'm sure people are here to talk about it.
All right, so I'm sure you all realize that the swap shop's been closed down since June, right? Is that right? Yeah. And, we're trying to do some renovations, work on it, trying to get it up to par. And we're having much success, and we discovered that it really became somewhat of an unsafe environment. And so we decided that last night we voted to have it removed in some fashion. Beyond that, we don't really have an idea what we're gonna do over there yet, but what was clear was we couldn't use the existing structures that are there for safety reasons. So, obviously, we're open to ideas, but we couldn't proceed with the liability of having those structures in use. Did I cover it?
Yep.
Okay.
Would you mind speaking up?
Certainly, sorry.
Very hard to hear.
All right. What I was saying was that we had to, last night we voted to remove the structure where the swap shop was for safety reasons, even though we've tried to, there were several folks that really worked hard to try to make that a usable space, and it was just found to be not so. So for liability and safety reasons, we decided to remove those structures. Beyond that, we're not sure what we're gonna do moving forward yet, but we're open to suggestions for sure. I just wanted to bring you all up to speed with what was voted on last night at the Buckfield Selectmen's meeting before we got started. So at this point, assuming you can add to that.
I mean, not really. I, worked with Sarah briefly, while she was in charge of the swap shop, and it wasn't for lack of trying, that's for sure. She just encountered issues that her, nor I, nor any of the members of the board had, felt confident in our ability to remedy and handle. So at this point, like Bob said, we've decided to remove the existing structure, but that's not to say that this community resource isn't still heavily valued by those of us on and off the board, and that we couldn't come together to find a new solution.
So, public comment? Yes, sir.
What were the safety hazards?
Uneven flooring, moisture issues, we didn't have anything officially tested, but we suspect that maybe some sort of mold was forming. It was, a couple different structures kind of patched together, and that leaves room for, all sorts of things to leak in, moisture. We were also having rodent issues as well.
Structure's not ADA compliant either.
Yes, sir.
I'll stand up because I was a selectman down in Sumner. Took us about 10 to 15 years to get that swap shop going. We visited lots of swap shops in Maine. We used them as models. Mary Standard applied for a grant for $4,500 to insulate that structure. And the final decision to create a swap shop was for several reasons, two of which I'll mention right now. First of all, we're saving a lot of money on transfer fees. And the latest figures from several years ago were that we were saving about 40 tons of waste just by having a swap shop. Second of all, there are lots of people in town who have clothed their children and who have obtained work clothing. And so it was a service to the town, especially since any recycling center or Goodwill or Salvation Army is 20 miles away, probably 15.5 miles, I'm exaggerating. But, so I think it's really short-sighted to make a decision on maybe something was happening instead of solving the problem, which is actually the work of selectmen, that is solve the problem that exists, as opposed to saying, well, we don't want to deal with the problem and we'll close the shop. I have looked at Facebook many, many times for the past 6 months. Everyone is asking, when will it be reopened? And the reason people are asking is because they need to get clothing or other items. For 20 years it worked fine. Right? Since 2005, which is when it was instituted. The deciding vote was 3-3. That is, 3 selectmen from Sumner said, yes, we should have a swap shop. 3 selectmen from Buckfield said, no, we shouldn't, there would be dirt, there would be too much traffic, and so on. And the final decision was made when Glenn Holmes broke the tie. And so that meeting was said, Glenn, they're not going to fire you just if you agree to just try the swap shop. And for 20 years, it has worked very well. I know people who get their work clothes from it, people who get dishes for their families because they can't afford their building materials that they use. So I think, it's maybe arrogant of me to think that, but to solve the problem would be the job of selectmen of 2 towns because of the service that it provides for everyone. And instead of saying, well, we'll just tear it down and forget about it. Because that will cost us much more money. We translate 40 tons or 50 tons a year that we save. And instead, we will be paying for it. So there is no recycling, there's no continuity in that. About an hour ago, I got a call from Judy Burr from Buckfield. She and I, as I said, worked for years and years and years. Mary Standard was also working on that. It's hard work to organize. It's very easy to destroy any institution. So to destroy something that has worked so well for so many years, I think it would be a shame. Also, it would be really short-sighted.
I think we appreciate that. I mean, we're not saying we shouldn't have a swap shop, but we just couldn't do it in that structure. And moving forward, we're, like I said, open to.
Because we knew about the moisture issues months ago when they tore up the floor. That wasn't the end-all be-all. What really cemented our decision was when volunteers started to come forward suggesting that the time spent in that space was the reason for their health issues. And that is a liability that our small town cannot take on. We felt as a board.
Can I spin off that, Bob?
Yeah.
So, when we're talking liability, the transfer station is a joint venture between our 2 towns. However, the property itself is owned by the town of Buckfield and the insurance is in the name of Buckfield. So at the end of the day, who bears the brunt of the liability? It's Buckfield. So we don't want to see the swap shop and we want to see a future for it, but we need to do it moving on beyond that building is where we're trying to get at, because, like, as I said, our town cannot withstand the liability of that, while we can't be negligent and say people are potentially leading or hinting that it's why they're sick, and then sit here and do nothing and keep it open and remain. I mean, that's negligent on our part. And at the end of the day, it's negligent on my part. So that's really why all this came about. So it's not that we're trying to take anything from anybody. We're trying to protect the town of Buckfield from liability.
Yes.
I just wanted a chance to, well, I guess I could probably speak on it too. I just wanted a chance to speak to how valuable that community resource has been for all of our communities. Now, I do come from Hartford, so did one of your board members come from Hartford, and in fact, often as not, when I was working there, which I did for about 13 years, there would be more volunteers from Hartford making it happen than there were from Sumner and Buckfield. In any case, I just want to say, you know, it's been a lifeline for any number of people. And I think that it's all well and fine to say that the facility is kind of shabby, because in fact, it is kind of shabby. But we're talking about the swap shop here. Nobody was in there for more than 15 minutes other than volunteers, and you say that the volunteers are now calling in sick. Well, none of them have been here since June. But you know, I guess that may or may not be true, but I guess I feel like it's enough of an important resource that what I want to know, I'll ask the Buckfield Select Board and the Sumner Select Board, are you going to be putting in a budget item so that you can afford to build another facility? Are you going to take money out of your transfer station funds? I know there's some money there. One of the people I've been speaking to is Penny Horsfall. I'm sure you all know. You know, Fred was her husband, who was the man who built all of the shelves and pretty much all of the infrastructure, put in new windows and so forth. She says, you know, there is money in the transfer station account that could be used towards building something, but unless you have a plan in place to trash what's already there, you know, I mean, I understand completely the whole liability thing. It's not like I've never had any feelings of being a select board. Liability, right? But at the same time, if you don't have a plan in place for what you're gonna do going forward, well, what are you doing?
One thing that has brought me some small comfort is that there is now an organization just over Stugate Mountain called Helping Hearts of Oxford Hills, and they offer a similar service, very well organized, very tidy, many volunteers. It is, of course, an extra 10-15 minute drive, but it's not for nothing. They provide free clothing, free home goods, free personal care items. We'll get to the money aspect of what the Solid Waste Committee and our transfer station is facing soon. I will say that I personally am open to allocating some money from our budget toward reopening a swap shop, but I don't think that we can just, you know, dump appropriated funds into the swap shop. I think we will need to seek out some grants and try and alleviate that burden instead of just finding it through taxation.
Benny pointed out that an article from the newspaper that was from 2024 about the swap shop that was put in Oxford, and that all came from a grant from, I think, DEP. I'm not sure. I'd have to look back on it. She sent me a link to it, but there are grant funds available. I just don't want to see you guys say, oh, thank God that problem was done, and just drop the subject. You can't just drop the subject. It's way too important for our community.
I completely agree with you.
It takes a village. It's gonna take more than just us to do this.
No, who put it together in the first place? Ask Mark. It wasn't the select boards.
Exactly.
It was
And we
volunteers.
agree.
Volunteers are possibly a little harder to come by now than they used to be, especially when you drive them off, but nonetheless, you know, I'm sure people will be willing to help. We've lost possibly our very best volunteer, our selfless carpenter, Fred Horsfall, is no longer with us. But, you know, it is conceivable that people would be willing to step up and help out. But I think you know, because you guys are taking the reins, I think you're gonna have to take the lead.
Well, just to give you some insight, for 6 months we've had, or whenever we shut it down, we have been asking for help to get these laundry list of things fixed on that with zero people
Volunteers
stepping
are
up.
hard to come by now.
Right, so who fixes it?
And
Who foots the bill for who fixes it? You know
Swap
what I
shop
mean?
is never supposed to be a liability for the towns of Buckfield or something.
Right.
to your point, Lee, the thing that made the swap shop a sweeping success for so many years was the people, the volunteers that worked as a cohesive unit to keep things clean, organized, rolling out, and I'm hesitant to invest in something when, from my perspective, from the transfer station meetings that I've been to so far the last few years, what the main problem seems to boil down to with the swap shop, every point of contention comes down to the fact that people, volunteers that are running the swap shop are having a very hard time getting along with each other. So maybe this forum here, maybe people will watch this and we'll get fresh, reinvigorated blood and people putting their heads together and being willing to work as a team to make this happen. But without the people, we're throwing the money away.
There are other avenues as well, like the Facebook page for the town. I personally don't go on Facebook. My wife, she monitors, yeah, the Buckfield.
For the swap
Buckfield.
shop, I think he's referring
So,
to.
like,
I was kicked off.
okay, I'm sorry for that. But people put on there, I need dishes, does anyone have dishes? And there are good people in the town that do pony up and hand stuff over to kids' clothes and all those things like that. So, I don't think anyone is isn't an easy decision in any direction, but we do have a method
I don't know
for
who's
passing
running
stuff
that
out.
now, but, you know,
Now it's gonna
it's
be
not
me,
public.
but for now, the swap shop is shut down, and we're dealing with this immediate issue, not the Facebook group. It can be a valuable resource, but that's not what we're here to discuss, so, thank you for your comments, Lee. I saw, did you have your hand up to make comment? I did.
I have a,
Yeah, sorry, up here in the front first, please.
The grant option is also what we used to get the heat pumps and insulation and stuff here, and so there's a resource, and I don't know what the expanse of options are for those, and I can't even remember the name of it now, but it's something that we can sign up for as towns, and
The
then up to
Community
50.
Resilience Partnership, yes. Buckfield and Sumner are both enrolled, and it's something worth exploring, but we're not sure how well that's gonna be funded with the upcoming
Yeah, the
administration.
deadline was the end of August anyway. for
Well, they have
this
different
next
phases in it, and we
Yeah.
can partner on that, so we can increase the funding if both towns do it together. However, I know we're probably almost at our 2 year and have to re-enroll. I don't know where
I think
some
we
of
are
these
too.
Yeah, we are.
So that would mean, you know, they anticipated looking at it, we got a plan, and then the options for doing the grant is more than once a year. So whenever that next rotation comes up, if we had something
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
works, that went by, it would
on top of that, they've got a new class of grants that includes things like swap shops.
I just have a question. So the building is obviously shut down. Does that mean if there's another building, it can't be at that location? Is the building being torn down? And can the building, if somebody were to volunteer to build a new building, could they build it on that site? Or are we saying no?
We have had problems with it kind of sliding.
Probably shift it over a little bit. We're not saying that a swap shop can't be built in place of it,
Okay,
slid over a little bit.
gotcha.
We're just saying that not that structure.
And also, is there a way, like Cam, I hear what you're saying, liability, right? I mean, and it shouldn't fall just on the town of Buckfield. Is there a way to get all the 3 towns to participate in that? If, you know, to contribute a portion to that so that it's not just Buckfield that takes on the entire liability?
So we had in prior meetings, swap shop.
We can't hear anything back here, the traffic's going by.
In prior meetings, we had discussed, with swap shop volunteers about going the route of a nonprofit and then carrying their own insurance. And then leasing the building to them. Of course, none of this has been run by the town of Buckfield's attorney to verify that it would, you know, get us out of the liability of it. But it's definitely something that could be explored to sort of take the liability off of one town and put it on one group of whoever's involved.
I mean, it makes sense, I think if the 3 towns are all utilizing it. The other question I had is, if we're talking about a new building, like what does that have to be? Like what does the new building have to be?
Well, I mean, it's gotta meet some semblance of a basic fire code, you know what I mean? It's gotta have, you know, fire extinguishers, it needs to be able to be accessible to a wheelchair, you know, so there's certain things that would have to go, again, I haven't deep dove into this, I mean, that building's not ADA compliant, it's got electric heat, you know, that is on a timer that turns on when nobody's there, the building's, it's a tinderbox.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the structure itself, I would assume would have to meet all Maine state codes. I mean, it's not like we could just, you know, slap something up or get another Connex box and put a roof over it. If we're gonna build a structure there, I would assume we're gonna have to meet all state codes, electrical.
if we're gonna let the public go inside it, that's when, I mean, you look at the town office in Buckfield, right, we've got a 2-story building. The only way we can utilize the 2nd story is if we have a chairlift to get to the 2nd floor. If not, we'd have to shut down the entire 2nd floor of that building and it couldn't be accessible to the public. So I mean, that's a little extreme as to what we're looking at here. But, it's definitely things that should be discussed with an attorney to make sure that we're not. And I do agree, it is a great resource for the town. I think if we do it the right way, it can be even better than it was before. But it's just unfortunate we're here in this situation. I mean, the structure lasted, what, close to 20 years, Mark? 15, 20 years?
That structure.
Is there any thought about like putting a committee together of folks from?
Absolutely, and I'm hoping to collect some contact information from folks who are interested for that specific purpose.
Thank you. No, don't be sorry. It was a tie.
The Buckfield Sumner transfer station was started in '82. We worked on it with MWAC. And the way we started is that Buckfield would be the manager, but we all, there's all 2 towns would share the responsibility for it. And every year there would be at least 2 meetings between the 2 select boards about the running of the transfer station. So I don't know, I don't understand, maybe there has been some change in the meantime, but there was, the responsibility included both towns, and liability included both towns when we first incorporated that transfer station. So it was done legally, it was done with consultation with lawyers when we created that. So I am not sure, I don't understand why Buckfield is the only town that would be encumbered by these kinds of things.
So I'm familiar with the agreement, because the agreement hasn't changed much since it was established when I was a kid. But because Buckfield maintained ownership of that facility, it's our property. The insurance policy is in the town of Buckfield's name, it's our insurance. It's not like Buckfield and Sumner have our separate policy on that facility. And maybe that's the issue. I mean, maybe that's something that needs to be discussed, maybe there needs to be a separate policy, but the insurance on that facility is in the town of Buckfield's name, and that's where that liability and that comes from. And it's written right into the agreement that the town of Buckfield maintains ownership of that property. Should the towns of Buckfield and Sumner find a new location for a facility, at that point it would become owned by Buckfield and Sumner. So we've never left that facility, and the town of Buckfield has main ownership of that, and that's why we insure it. Yes, they pay a share of the deductible, of the premiums, as part of the budget, because they pay 35 and we pay 65. But at the end of the day, any claims, any of that is on us.
Well, I had to go over the same material. When we created it, is that became Sortman maybe too. The concept of that was that it would become a joint corporation. So maybe the policy was rewritten because at that time both of us had liability for it.
I'm not a lawyer, I'm not saying that if somebody got injured and wanted to sue, they couldn't sue the town of Sumner, the town of Buckfield, but I'm just telling you how it is.
I understand that, I'm just questioning the transformation of it, because I remember how we initially set it up, so that both towns would be responsible for it. Now, originally, we invited Hartford, but Hartford didn't want to join that corporation, or sub-corporation. And they wanted, Joan Jasper was the select person at that time in Hartford. And Hartford took the vote, they decided they didn't want to join the corporation. And that's why there are only two towns in this. And that's why it's much more difficult now to accept another entity that is Hartford, because MWAC is the controlling facility for that. I'm just giving you a little history.
Question in the back.
Yeah, so if a nonprofit were to be formed, would that remove it from underneath the town's control and move to a different site?
And what was the last part of the question?
So if it were, say, a nonprofit was established, and the site is removed from town property,
Yeah.
that would obviously take it out from the town's purview, right?
Well, so when we were exploring a nonprofit agreement, it was an agreement to be signed by the towns of Hartford and Sumner. You could form your own nonprofit and create a swap shop anywhere you like. But this specific idea was to lease land on the grounds of the transfer station to a separate nonprofit entity that we would have signed a contract with. So it would have to be an entity that the towns are interested in signing that agreement with. But that's not to say that someone couldn't do their own thing, just as Helping Hearts of Buckfield Hills has. They're not associated with the transfer station in Norway or any other transfer station. They're their own entity, they have their own building, they pay their own rent and all that sort of stuff.
So I have an additional question.
Yeah.
It dovetails. So the question of liability continues to come up. Longtime insurance professional, the point of insurance is that you don't carry the liability.
insurance is pooled by every other, basically, contributor to that insurance, whether it is local or otherwise, and the insurance takes that liability for you. You have shifted liability from yourselves as a town to every other resident of both towns. In terms of increased taxation for increased tipping fees, it increased food insecurity, as Mark was talking about, lack of ability to pay for clothing, furniture, dishes, all of the things that come out of the swap shop is now shifted onto the townspeople, and our taxes increased significantly last year. Where is the juice for that financial squeeze? We are losing hugely, and I do not depend on the swap shop to exist, but I know people who do, and I have seen people who do, and it's a cruelty to shut down a community asset without first consulting the community, because we all use it, we all contribute to it, we all take from it.
Am I
It's shared.
understanding correctly, are you a volunteer there?
I am not,
Okay.
but I do not have time. You know, I'm a working professional.
Yeah.
It's not feasible.
We understand the impact that this will have on the community at large, and especially for those less needy than us, but that doesn't stop the fact that we can't continue to operate out of a moldy building and have volunteers and guests in that structure. And all the reasons that you listed are why I am impassioned in finding another solution and a way forward for the swap shop. But at present moment, I'm not gonna put household items in a building that has mold and rodents in it. I'm not gonna put clothing in a building that has mold and rodents in it, and I'm not gonna put people in that building. So I understand and I hear what you're saying, and it is not something that we have just pushed out of our minds, but that doesn't prevent us from getting to where we are now, which is where we have to take immediate action, because it's negligent for us to continue operating out of that space.
Insurance doesn't pay on negligence if they can prove that you were negligent. And now that we've been notified about this stuff, it would be negligent of the town not to do something. That's where that came from.
Jen, do you have another comment?
I do, I have a question, if that's okay. I was just thinking, you brought up a good point, I think, that you don't want people in that building. Is there anything that prevents people, or like a designated space that's outside, maybe, and that people could drop things off? Because I understand there are people that do depend on this for getting household items, clothing, whatever they need. Is there anything that prevents people from maybe, or having a designated space that's outside so people don't have to go into a place, and it doesn't have to stay there? I'm not suggesting it stay there for like weeks and months at a time, but maybe for the day that the swap shop's open, and if nobody picks it up, just a thought.
I mean, this was something that our previous coordinator explored, was while renovations were happening, that she would operate the swap shop in like a yard sale style sort of fashion. And it seemed as though, from what she conveyed to us, that there were too few volunteers who wanted to sit outside for that length of time.
So why, I'm just asking, if we're having items outside, if we're just leaving them there, is there a reason why somebody has to be there the whole time? Can they just be there could they just be there at the end of the day to take care of the items that are left there?
Yes. I mean, it may be a possibility, and I'm willing to explore that, but what we had happen while the swap shop was closed, where people were just dumping
Yeah.
a bunch of like unusable items, unsanitary items. So to ask like a transfer station employee to sort through that, I feel would be unfair. And sure, maybe we have a volunteer who's willing to come in at the end of the day and sort through garbage, but I'm not feeling optimistic based on the fact that I have, 4 months of an impassioned person's diligent follow through and follow up on this project, and she was not able to make it work. And that was with her having, being there, hands-on, every day that the swap shop was open, or supposed to be open, and also on days that it wasn't.
But if there were volunteers,
It's something,
It's a possibility.
It's something we can explore, absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think anybody's here is saying that they can't run a swap shop out of the dirt parking lot.
Yep.
As long as there's people that can manage it and not leave it in a state of trash. Because my employees have had to go over there at the end of the day, in addition to their other stuff, load up the backhoe and then go sort it and put it in the correct bins. And I'm gonna be honest with you, that's not part of their job.
Yeah, no, and that's not what I was suggesting.
No, I hear what you're saying. I'm just saying that's what we were up
Yeah,
against when this was going on.
Yeah.
And there were numerous days, before I put the signs up that said no more dumping, that
Yeah.
people were filling that place up in 15, 20 minutes. And then at the end of the day, when they closed, he'd have to go over there and load everything up and go sort it, so.
And I also know it's not a perfect solution, and also that other groups are doing it, like I know we have a local buy and sell nothing group, but I am optimistic that the swap shop page will still be able to be used for people posting items that they are looking to discard and divert from the waste stream, to offer up to the community. It is a shame that it's in a digital format and not everyone has access to Facebook, but that's the best I have in this moment. I'll invite you back to the page, please. That's your motion.
I was just gonna say that, I'm actually the chair of the Hartford Solid Waste Committee, for what it's worth. Not much in this forum, but in any case, one of the things we do is, twice a year, well, going for twice a year this year, we have, what we call the Buy Nothing Day, where, people come, Hartford residents only can bring stuff, but can bring stuff to the town hall. And last weekend, people can bring stuff on Friday, Saturday morning, people shop all day, Sunday, eat Saturday, Sunday we'll clean it up. We move so much stuff in that short format. I just wanted to, we're gonna be having another one before Christmas, hopefully, yet to be announced, but I just thought people might be interested in, something like there may be a place somewhere where you could hold something like that, so people could hold their stuff and just bring it in. The problem with having people just bring stuff when nobody's watching is because, for whatever reason, people can't be responsible about only bringing good stuff and not bringing damn junk. And somebody's gotta sort through.
Yeah, for the record, to tie into that, there's absolutely nothing stopping anybody from hosting any type of free yard sale, collecting stuff, doing it on your own property or through a Facebook page or a post or anything. It's not like because the swap shop's getting permanently or however long it's gonna be closed at the transfer station doesn't mean that all this stuff has to go by the wayside now. Just, it's not like you can't make a post or give your stuff away or offer it for free until, you're tired of looking at it to the point you do throw it away or whatever. There's nothing stopping anybody from doing that or finding your own facility too, in the interim. So, those are my 2 cents.
Absolutely. We good with public comment for now, so we can move on? We have some other stuff to go over. I want to give everybody a chance to speak, though. And know that we're open to suggestions, especially Azalea, who does a lot of the work on it.
Yeah, if you're willing to, please give me your contact information so I can get in touch, keep people in the loop, and I'm sorry that we're doing effort around bringing it back. If you have to leave early, maybe I have a piece of paper around, I can scribble your contact information on. I'll try to get everyone's information by the end of the meeting.
Thank you. All right. Approval of the minutes from January 7th, 2025 meeting.
make a motion to accept the meeting minutes as written.
I abstained only because I wasn't here. I was part of the committee for the January 7th or April 22nd meeting, so I apologize for my silence.
I will second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Approval of the April 22nd, 2025 minutes.
And we did, like,
Yeah, it's down there.
I will make the motion.
I'll second to approve the April 22nd, 2025 minutes.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor? Those opposed? All right. Solid waste budget and bank account update.
Everybody get copies of this, right?
Yes. I believe there's some out too for everyone, right?
There are.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So I'll start with the 24-25 budget. I gave you that sheet as well as where we're at year to date as of the 18th, but as you can see, similar to the year prior, and what we've seen really for the last couple of years is tipping fees, decreases in tipping fees, and an increase in disposal period, the quantity of waste. So if you look at the line under professional and tech, so 504, 500, you'll see that we went 60,982.47 over what was budgeted. So we had budgeted 160,000 for waste and recycling. So that's everything from hauling, tipping, and final disposal. So in the end, after going through, looking over the whole budget, we ended with a $57,631 overage, which I had already expressed that to most of you prior to when we wrote the new budget for this fiscal year, when you saw that big increase. This is where that came from. So if you look at the total that was expended for the year for solid waste, we spent $298,476. If you recall, our budget for this year is $308,000. With that said, Maine Waste Energy hit us with a special assessment because their cash reserves are at zero. So in addition to our increase of, what was it, $47 per ton for Main Street waste, and then they jumped that up to $54 a ton, and this next year, in the next fiscal year, they're gonna increase it to 60 plus. They also hit us with a $29,000 special assessment that we have to pay by April. So obviously that was budgeted for, because I found that out after the budget was already approved by both towns, and then received the bill. So that special assessment is gonna have to come out of the solid waste bank account, in addition to the overage. So when we start talking about what's left over in the solid waste account, we have a solid waste account that has 123,000 as of June 30th, 123,000, and of that, we gotta pull 57,000 for the overage, to cover the overage, and then we have to pay the $29,000 assessment. So that solid waste bank account isn't as big as everybody might think it was. And we're gonna have to be really careful moving forward, because we're not gonna have this big cushion to know that, hey, if we go $60,000 over, we can. So, with that said, I already covered the $29,000 assessment for Buckfield and Sumner. On a good note, we're not Auburn, we don't have to pay $620,000. I did give you a copy of the disposal fees. I gave you a copy that was done in January of '24, and then the current version that I updated on the 18th of this month. So Archie's came in after the budget was passed and let us know that those rates were gonna have to go up. Archie's hasn't increased our hauling rates, so I mean, it was kind of anticipated when they were sold that those fees were gonna have to go up, and I sort of anticipated that. I was like, I'll add 10% into the waste and disposal and we'll be covered. Well, it went from $154 a pole to $230 a pole. Tires stayed the same at $260, but tires are one of those things where it's $260 for the pole, and then they haul it off to a place up in Fairfield, and they charge us $165 a ton. So usually, to get rid of a load of tires is just under $800, $900, depending on how heavy it is. It's not as high as like if we were to dispose of all of our tires at main waste energy. MWE charges $15 a tire to get rid of a tire. So if somebody mistakenly or on purpose throws a tire into our OBW bin, it gets hauled to main waste energy. They sort through it. They bill us for every tire, every little refrigerator they might find in there, anything that they can, you know, it has Freon, we're gonna get hit with that. So it's very important that people do not put that stuff in that bin. So we're at $230 per pull. That was the big one. Brush, so for us to haul off the brush, that when I first started 3 years ago, I think was in the ballpark of like $150 a load is what we charge. It's now up to $190. It doesn't cost us anything to get rid of it. He hauls it off the old castle, and it's we're just paying him to haul it. So and it's a $40 per load increase, but it's minor in the grand scheme of things. In your packet, I actually included all of the individual vendors. I hope I got them all, but so you can kind of get a picture of where most of our disposal fees go. And if you look at the very first one, you've got main waste energy. So MWE is where most of our disposal costs are. So last year, we spent $123,000 at main waste energy to dispose of, I don't have the exact number on the bulky waste, but our mainstream waste was 1,070 tons. And I think there was another 450 tons of OBW. So that's what we spent on the disposal at MWE. Archie's, who was charging us $154 a pull, was another 64,000. So you can see that that's going to be an increase considerably. CPRC group, that's where, so Archie's will haul the dumpster there, and that's where we dispose of construction and debris, so shingles, sheetrock. We spent $6,000 with it. So it's not like that was a huge cost to the facility, but I just wanted everybody to get a picture of that. North Coast, that's all of our universal waste, so TVs, light bulbs. Light bulbs are really the cost there. Most of the electronics don't cost us anything to dispose of other than them coming and packing them up and loading them up on the truck. So that's mostly fluorescent light bulbs is what led to that $1,100 for the miners. So Butch Quimby, he's the one that hauls the brush. That was just under, it was like $6,000 to haul off the brush from last year. Ozone savers, so this is refrigerators. I didn't break the number in front of me, and I don't feel like calculating it, but we pay, well, actually, it'd be $320, right? $10 a piece. So between ACs and refrigerators and freezers, we have, before we can dispose of them, we have to get rid of the refrigerant. So they come in and they suck out all the refrigerant. They charge us $10 a unit. So every AC, every refrigerator, every freezer, that's what it costs us. The one thing I didn't mention about main waste to energy, we've had this discussion numerous times, but if you go through this sheet, you can see on average how many mattresses we get rid of per month. So last August, which would have been the July invoice, we got rid of 20 mattresses. They were $25 a piece. That was $500 to get rid of 25 mattresses. I've only done an AP for the first 2 months of this fiscal year, and we're already at 50. So we're trending to spend a significant amount of money on getting rid of mattresses and box springs because they don't fit in the incinerator. So as we get into further discussion later on, that's why I really want to point this stuff out. You'll also note that at one point they found one electronic in one of our loads. They charged us $12 for that. So it's kind of a nickel and dime game. Is a lot of this stuff is adding up. And I know as we've talked about the swap shop situation, obviously we want to keep stuff out of the, but a lot of the stuff that's on here isn't typical. And a significant portion of what went out at the swap shop is obviously means what would go into the compactor. Somebody throw it in a bag and throw it in there, or go into OBW. So I think Don's estimate for the last year I had asked him was that they had gotten rid of 60 tons or diverted 60 tons. So if you look at the rates, you can kind of calculate what we're saving, not factoring in the actual hauling, because sometimes our OBW goes out, it could be 6 tons in that one load, and it only cost us $154 to get rid of that, plus whatever the weight was, but,
That's about 1%.
yeah. So, all in all, that's where the budget landed. I'm hoping that this year it won't be as high, because I did factor in a lot of those increases that we saw last year. And, you know, the 308 that I came up with for this year is relatively close to where we ended last year, but there were some increases. So I do anticipate, we may have a slight overage next year. We can monitor it. You know, as we've talked numerous times over the last 2 years about fees for certain items. If it costs the transfer station to dispose of it in addition to what our regular tipping fees are, it should probably be something that we look at. You know, refrigerators are one thing, mattresses are the other. Last year it was $25, this year it's $30. So if we get rid of 300 mattresses at $30 a piece, that's a huge chunk out of the budget. If we get rid of 200 refrigerators at $10 a piece, you know, it's a couple grand. You know, all these little things add up. I've always been adamant that the tires weren't a significant deal. It's $165 a ton, you get about 100 tires to a ton, I think is what I came up with. So we're talking a couple dollars a tire, so it's not as bad as if we were getting rid of them at waste. But again, that's another item, you know, that it's significantly more than bulky waste or anything else. Some of the problems that we have obviously are, we haven't, as a committee, you haven't gone over operations manuals or the stuff that were created decades ago that haven't been updated. But the rules that I have that have been at the town office since I've been there have always said, like for construction and debris, 1 load per day. There's 1 pickup and 1 trailer load. You know, you got some people coming in there with 4, 5, 6 loads a day. How do you police that? I'd love to say we had another person who's solely dedicated to checking stickers and making sure that people aren't coming in and abusing the system, but where do we get that money from without budgeting for it next year? So just some things to think of as we move forward on all of that. Aside from that, do you guys have any questions about the budget? The bank account?
Do you have an estimate on how much stuff was, like you said, like nickel and dime stuff, like I found that electronics that was in the wrong bin? Do we know how much we're kind of losing with stuff like that, these mistakes?
That doesn't happen very often, but which we're fortunate about because they're very good at making sure they bill us for it if it is. I've only seen it, you know, a handful of times in the last year, and it could be an honest mistake, right? Some people just don't know. You get a tiny little refrigerator and you just think it just goes in there and then it happens. But when they charge us $60 to get rid of it, when we could have just put it over there and it cost us 10, it's small now, but we gotta be cognizant of it.
Yeah. Just curious if it was like a major portion or just something
No.
that's.
The major like unanticipated increases that have hit us over the last year and a half have been mattresses.
Just because of the disposable.
Yeah, I mean, it's an extra, it was close to an extra 10 grand that we paid on something that we just, has always been part of bulky waste, you know what I mean? They never charge for it. But knowing that we're gonna get hit with another significant increase next year for just household waste, this budget's not gonna get any easier. And it's gone from about 240 2 years ago to now 308, and now we're talking about other costs that aren't there, so. Me personally, as a taxpayer, you know, when I look at how much the operating budget is of the transfer station and what Buckfield is, and then you do the calculation, you're like, how much of my taxes go to solid waste? It's very minuscule, and I'm fine with, me personally, I'm fine with saying, you know what, if I gotta get rid of my refrigerator, I'm gonna pay $10 to get rid of it, and know that I'm not gonna see an increase in my taxes that would amount to much more than that $10 over time, you know what I mean? So, how often do you get rid of a refrigerator? Or a mattress? I mean, well, actually, I guess you can get rid of a mattress every year. They don't make them like they used to. But I know fees are a big thing that people don't really want to see. But I mean, we've got a $308,000 budget that is going to continue to grow if things keep going the way that they are.
Can you remind me, is staffing the reason why we stopped recycling at the transfer station?
No, so glass is one of those things, nobody wants it. So glass doesn't get recycled. We do recycle plastic, we do recycle, so that's another thing, that's a kind of sort of, the public needs to be aware. Like if you clean your plastic, there's still areas for you to put it at the transfer station. And we compact it and it gets sent out with Casella when we send our cardboard out. We don't get anything for it, but it'll still get recycled. You know, don't throw your cardboard in the dumpster. If it's not wet and it's good cardboard, put it over there so they can compact it, because that money that we generate from that goes back into the solid waste account to cover things that are unanticipated like this. Same with scrap metal. We've had problems with people coming into the transfer station when we're closed, climbing into the scrap metal bin and taking metal. Like, yeah, it seems silly, but the money that's generated from that metal goes into this account and covers all these so whenever that revenue disappears, that's more that we have to turn around and tax the people. And I don't think anybody here wants to see people's taxes go up more than they need to. So, but yes, you can still recycle plastic. I see that they put glass in a container, most of the time it ends up back in the compactor because nobody will take it. And that's been a problem at transfer stations everywhere.
Do they do aluminum?
Yes, we have the aluminum can, the tin cans, whatever you want to call it, out back. There's bins for them to dispose it out front, and then once those are full, which is usually once or twice a year, we'll haul those off and we'll get a small amount of money for that as well, which will go into this. I mean, last year, and this is kind of blanketed with swap shop donations, so we gotta kind of take some of that money out, but, you know, all in all, between iron tickets, cardboard, and then the swap shop donations, which I take probably $1,500 to $2,000 out of that. So you're looking at, we generated close to $22,000 in revenue from just cardboard and iron.
Can you update the listing of what is accepted at the transfer station? I think it still lists glass, and I keep telling people that they don't take it.
It does,
It's
I
on
was
the
looking
list.
at that today and I made note of that, but thank you.
The other question is, well, the plastic, is it just the ones and twos, or do we, we only take one, or we only take two, but we don't take 3, 4, 5, and 6?
Yeah, I can't remember.
I think it's just two. It's just like the milk jug style, you know, that thick, heavy grade plastic.
So if there's anybody who's putting other than those in, does that get sorted out?
Yeah, the guys at the transfer station will take up stuff that can't go in there, and they'll toss it.
So that update too would help, maybe, not, maybe it'll be easy. So I have a question on the fee schedule. It's effective October 1st. Has there always been a charge in this fee schedule, or is this a new thing?
That was just a proposal. They haven't even discussed it, so this isn't even a thing. It's in their packet because, again, we've had a lot of solid waste meetings and we've discussed this, and it's always been up to like, how do we enforce it? Something needs to be done sooner than later, or come December when I start putting together a budget, we're gonna see another transfer station budget that's gonna go from 308 to probably 325, 330, which means Sumner pays more, Buckfield pays more. So one way or another, we're gonna have to collect the money, and if you can do it this way through more of like a use fee as opposed to everybody pays for my refrigerator fee, maybe that's the best way to handle it. It's just a matter of making sure we keep people honest.
Are you proposing maybe a trial period, a pilot, where you're proposing here that they buy the permits or whatever it is at the town office?
So I put that in there, and I'll admit to everybody here, I put this together. The reason I put that on there is because the stickers themselves cost us close to $3 a piece. So it's to recoup that cost and not have to, add it into a budget item. And the other problem too is not problem, it's more of a deterrence, because you have some people who have a lot of vehicles, and originally it was, we'd allow 3 stickers per household. Well, on the spreadsheet that Diane and this office keep and I keep, it's really hard to sit there and like verify that they've only got 3. And so what happens is, we just recently changed the color, so if anybody's got a red sticker, get to the town office and get a new one. over time, all these vehicles end up somewhere else with our stickers on them. And if we get to an area where we're gonna have to change these stickers every year, and when you come in to register your car, you get a new one, it's gonna cost us all that money to get that. So I was trying to deter the multiple stickers and spreading it out to other towns and then having them come into our facility because, you know, there's a lot of people in town that I don't know, and I see a lot of people during the day. So I can't tell you if they're from Buckfield, they got a sticker, it looks good to me. But who knows if that was from an owner or two ago, or they legitimately lived in town, so. Yeah, I mean, I don't have an answer as far as a pilot, but I'll talk about it when we get to that agenda item, if that's really what that was all about.
I know you're hearing that from Hartford, but I'd just like to point out that one of the things we do in town of Hartford is if you are having a construction project where you have a contractor in and you're doing it yourself, you get yourself a dumpster. You know, we just, if, because we have a completely different structure for getting rid of our oversized bulky, but, you can't just pile all your construction debris outside your place and have it picked up. It's not happening. You have to get yourself a dumpster. I thought you won't hear that.
That is one of the issues that we've discussed in the past.
Well, that's right, you mentioned that, I just wanted to say.
And I'm not, people have their, some people run their own businesses and they have their own, they gotta make a living. But, if somebody's running a junking business and they're going outside of town and getting stuff and bringing it here, there's really no deterrence from them dumping it in our transfer station. They've got a sticker, they live in town, so that's where we got into like the construction and debris and the OBW fees, is trying to enforce that one load limit. I did put a suggested restriction to an 8-foot trailer, because it's your typical like tag-along trailer, like 8 feet, or a pickup truck, and then having a higher rate for the bigger ones, because somebody comes in with a dump trailer and says, oh yeah, I'll pay the same price that the guy does with a little dinky trailer. And to be honest with you, one of those dump trailers you could probably fit a ton or two of stuff. So if you're talking $190 a ton, or if it's sheetrock, even more, $220 to get rid of that. Like,
If it's dry. But if it's wet,
it weighs a lot more.
oh yeah.
Sorry, we got off subject, we went to a different agenda item.
All right, good discussion. Proposed transfer station fees, we have discussed on that. Someone was kind enough to put some suggestions on the back here. Obviously, the enforcement issue persists.
The struggle is, in our current state, in order to do this, it really is an honor system, right? If you're gonna come in, and I can only hope that Stanley sees somebody come in 2 or 3 times with a truckload of stuff, or catches somebody dumping a mattress, and can go out there and verify, but, the only real way to do it without having to have the transfer station guys handling money is that somebody's gonna have to have plans and know that, hey, on Saturday, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna dump off a mattress, and I gotta get a ticket to get rid of my mattress. Now, I know it's a double-edged sword, because some people have said, well, now we're gonna find mattresses dumped all over town. What do we do? So this is my proposal. You'd have to come up, I'd have to get a template for tickets, and then get them to Sumner so that they can issue them. But it's a good start to planning and combating some of these increases. The tires thing has always been, you get rid of, it says 2 per day. So anything above and beyond that, we've always had tire tickets, I don't know if you still have them over here. But they can buy additional tire tickets for $2. So that's really not any different than it's been since I was a kid. Obviously, the charge for the stickers is a different one, but I'll tell you, 95% of the people that come in here ask me, how much is a transfer station
That's
sticker?
true.
So they're kind of expecting to pay for it.
Yep.
And all I'm really trying to do is recoup the cost of the stickers themselves. Refrigerators, I told you, I pay $10 a piece.
$10, that's just to remove
The free,
the free.
yeah, and then most of that stuff goes into the metal bin, and we get a generic price for everything that's in there, so.
Yeah.
The construction and demolition, it's $190 a ton to get rid of bulky waste. So, those are kind of guesstimate numbers as far as after the first load. Other than the large trailer, I mean, if you come in there with a big large trailer, then and then mattresses and box springs, you get charged $30 for every one of those. The brush is trying to recoup some of the hauling fee. We could probably do away with the brush, but again, we need to emphasize the fact that it's one load of brush per day. I've seen people in there 5-6 trips a day. That fills up quick, and then I can get him over there to haul it off, so that the next day we're open, we can get more over there.
Do we already have a signage over there that emphasizes that way?
The sign was there last I looked, it could be shoved over in the corner, but, I think putting out a new visual on what's accepted and whatnot might help, but there are definitely situations where the system's being abused. You know, the 2 tire a day thing's been there forever. Most people drop off 4, right? Take 4 tires off the car. The guys at the dump usually are preoccupied or whatever, and they're not gonna go out there and find somebody for $2. Do we really want those guys handling money? Because then it's to protect them, is why I don't think that they should really, you know, they're doing 100 things at once and then, they forget to turn in $50, and now all of a sudden everybody's accusing them of stealing. No, I'm not. I like the mentality of pre-buying. And we could come up with something different that's more electronic or whatever in the future, where somebody can just pay electronically and nobody has to touch it. But
I mean, I think that's what it's gonna have to come to, because I can imagine how frustrated people are gonna be when they show up on Saturday, day that the town offices are both closed, and they have to come back, you know, again later with a ticket. So, yeah, that was just my only concern with this whole idea, is I was hoping that it might be a possibility to, like, you know, establish a price increase for those who need to pay cash at the dump station to try and facilitate people going to the town office to receive a discount on the fees. But if you don't see that as,
I'm open to whatever this committee has for suggestions.
I just like, you're the guy who, you know, deals with these employees, you know them, you know their capacity more than anything of us are doing.
My concern electronically is that none of those guys are technology savvy. You know, they're older gentlemen, they're not walking around with an iPad and telling you to pay here and put it here. They're just, it's not something, for what we pay our transfer station attendants, you know, like, if we were to lose one, I would recommend hiring, and it's hard to find somebody to work 2 days a week, right? And one of those days is a Saturday. Finding somebody that's, you know, retired, just trying to keep busy or whatever, pay them a little more to pay a little bit more attention to what's going on and kind of police this. But I just don't think that.
Cam, I don't think it'd be too far to do something kind of similar, like the Moses ID system for fish and game, where there's a database. Once you register and everything else, you're in there, and if you need to pay a fee or whatever, you can do it right there on your phone, and then they can just show the attendant, hey, here's my receipt.
Yeah.
You know. something.
Yeah, I will say, I don't think it would look like the attendants walking around with an iPad. It would be like the person dropping something off would be responsible for going on their phone or their device and paying through that. And yeah, potentially showing the receipt. So that's definitely something I see as worth exploring if we're gonna implement this, cause yeah, I can just imagine the feedback that will be received about people not being able to pick up a ticket on the day that the dump is open. And on the day that a lot of people have off, to be, you know, dropping stuff off of the dump.
And with that, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. You're gonna get the feedback that I don't use electronic devices, and I don't have the internet, and I don't do this and that. It's gonna be the same either way.
And they're just gonna have to have an option where they can go into the town office.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, undoubtedly, yeah.
You know, this was a start to something, and I like what Joel's talking about. But we gotta do something. I'm gonna have to.
Did you have a question, sir?
Yeah, have you thought at all about just consolidating some of the smaller stuff under the ticket, or under the sticker fee? And like, basically putting the expense there, and you then eliminate the need to track individual items? I mean,
that's kind of where I was thinking, like a $10 a year to get your sticker removed, as opposed to, you know, getting a ticket for tires and refrigerators, and just have an upfront cost to kind of help level it out.
I mean, it's possible, but then again, I'm not saying that somebody's getting rid of, you know, you're not getting rid of a mattress. You pay $10, you can get rid of 6 mattresses, and you paid you $10, and now everybody else is paying for the 5 other mattresses, you know. That's the problem.
It's just,
Some of these
it's just
items.
passing the taxation on in a different form.
Right. At that point, my opinion would be then just increase the budget. I do think, I mean, even if you don't implement all of this, then maybe explore, what are we doing with transfer stickers? Of course, we just changed them, so everybody's got brand new ones, so, I mean, like, if you do it on an annual basis, at least you can incorporate it that way, but it's still gonna result in an overall tax increase at the end, because I'm not gonna have a historic 12 months to figure out, well, what are we gonna generate from this?
Right.
And if you pay $10 a year to renew your sticker, then the only way we could really prove that is we gotta have a new sticker every year.
Yeah.
Because somebody would, it's the same color.
Question over here.
Are there provisions in there for folks that advertise that they are making dump runs, or that they have a private business that collects trash and brings it to our transfer station?
So there isn't right now, well, there is and there isn't. It's not as obvious, and it actually doesn't cover Main Street waste. So I had a conversation with the Lisbon town manager, and apparently in Lisbon what they do is if you're a hauler, you got a box truck, you go around, you collect trash, and you charge a fee for it. Apparently they have to pay a certain fee per year, and he was actually, in the discussion that I overheard, was discussing how that fee didn't actually cover what they were actually bringing in. To me, in Buckfield and Sumner, that fee is significant, because it was like $3,000 in Lisbon, but some of these guys had like, you know, they had 75 customers they were serving on a monthly basis and charging them X amount of dollars a month. You do the math, they're making a fortune, while the transfer station is bleeding resources. I think that is something that should be explored as well. You know, because how do you prove that they're collecting trash or debris or whatever from Buckfield and Sumner? There's no way to. So there really should be, if somebody's making a profit off of something, there should be an annual fee that's assessed to them. And they get a special sticker that, you know, says, hey, I'm a commercial hauler and I've got permission. I don't know where that touts the line of what's allowed, since we're part of MWE, and if they're collecting stuff from other areas, if it makes its way into MSW or OBW, you know, we could be in trouble for that, because contractors have their own fee over them, and maybe it's a lot higher than ours.
So the question always is how to proceed, right? Like.
I mean, this is the first time I put a fee schedule in front of you. I've talked about it.
Right.
We've been talking about it for so long. This seems like a great starting point. We can always come back and change things. Nothing's set in stone. For that reason, I'll make a motion that we adopt this Buckfield Sumner solid waste facility fee schedule.
Could I amend that actually? To maybe say November 1st instead of October
Give us a
1st,
month.
because and that gives us a month to get the word out and people understand that this is gonna happen. And then we obviously understand that it's gonna take 6 months to a year to train people.
I will amend my motion to say, I move we adopt the Buckfield Sumner solid waste facility fee schedule with changes.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. Yeah, that isn't bad, how to proceed. We've already discussed the swap shop closure, which is next on the agenda. Not sure we need to move forward anymore with that, except to say, hopefully you get in touch with Azalea, which is great.
Yes, for those who don't know me, my name is Azalea Cormier. You can find my information on the Town of Buckfield Select Board page. My email or texting the phone number that is available there are my primary forms of communication. Thank you.
Thank you. Other committee business?
I have brought before you, I believe Cameron built out a draft of the Buckfield Sumner Solid Waste Transfer Station rules and regulations. Another subject item we've been talking about for a while, our attendants have been dealing with some abusive behavior, which is what led to creating a formal document for rules and regulations. That stuff is outlined there on the bottom half of the page. All visitors are expected to treat staff and others with respect. Abusive, threatening, or disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. License plate numbers may be recorded in the event of misconduct. And the enforcement procedure is that your first incident, a verbal warning is issued. The second incident, you will be trespassed for 1 month. Third incident, trespass for 3 months. Fourth, for 6 months. And further incidents may result in a permanent trespass from the facility. General rules include children being supervised at all times, pets remaining in vehicles, and staff companions must be kept in a secured area away from vehicle traffic. Illegal dumping is prohibited. Visit buckfield.maine.gov/solid waste for more information. Speed limit within the facility. Anything in brackets for you gentlemen is just something that was at one point I wasn't sure of. What is the current?
It doesn't have one, but I would recommend that you move faster than 10 miles.
Okay. I can move that we adopt this with changes. Scavenging or removal of materials from the facility, not allowed, of course. No smoking, vaping, or open flames. No loitering when unloading. Unload and exit the drop-off area promptly to keep traffic moving. Do not dump outside posted hours. Large items may require special disposal procedures or fees. Commercial haulers, another optional point. Commercial haulers must follow additional regulations and fee structures and follow staff instructions at all times. I am going to move that we adopt the Buckfield Sumner Solid Waste Transfer Station rules and regulations with changes.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Bob. The changes being having a max speed limit of 10 miles per hour, as Cameron just mentioned. I will make direct mention of the fee schedule that we just adopted, as well as linking to the page where people can find it. And since we are not taking action on the commercial haulers at the moment, I will remove that item. But I would encourage we discuss that in the future.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? So, yeah, in reference to the commercial haulers, I'll set that as an agenda item for next time.
Yep.
Just develop what, I think Kane's do a little research for us on what the plan behind that. Any other business?
They probably want to get their meeting started.
Yeah, I know, we've been set up a few times,
It's
sorry.
still pretty early.
Yeah, I've only got one phone call, so.